Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Franti.
Well, welcome back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show with the second half of our show today. And today we're going to kind of stay with the theme here and work on things that kind of focus more on your personal wellness. When Don and I started the show 6 years ago, it was always about personal and financial wellness. And the reason we think that life balance is important is because the things in your personal life always affect the things in your business life and vice versa. So we want to make sure you have your personal life in order. And today with me is Myles McNamara, one of our America's Professional Resource Group members, and he's with Comfort Keepers In-Home Care. And he's always bringing things to me because, as you may or may not know, if you're a listener of the show, I have a 91-year-old grandmother that's being cared for by my family. And every time Myles comes on the show, I learn something about what's possibly happening at home with me.
Aha moments.
Aha moments. And so, Myles, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gino.
And we also welcome you to join us, as we say, on Don and Gino's Hub, which is donandgino.com, where you can get access to our YouTube channel, our podcasts that are being all uploaded to Lisbon, I think is the way you name it, and soon to be on iTunes, and also our Facebook page, and pretty much our hands in everything that we do. So thanks for joining us again, Myles. And today we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions, right? Kind of how to reset for the new year with the family and make sure that things are in order and maybe take inventory of what happened last year and how this year can be better.
Right. And again, being, it's January, happy New Year to everybody. And so we always make these New Year's resolutions, and they're not, always that fun. We're talking about lose weight, more exercise, yada, yada, yada. Well, it's the same with our senior loved ones. It's that time where during the holidays, a lot of times it's the only time we see our parents if we live in different states or whatever. So, Thanksgiving and Christmas, New Year's might be the only time of the year you see your parents. And maybe you've talked to them on the phone. So things to really focus on, is like you talk to them on the phone and, the conversations are very superficial and that type of thing. So really take stock in are they calling people by name? Are they just basically asking about the weather? Just to see if you can recognize any decline for when you do see them for the first time. It's like maybe when you came together and hopefully you used your five senses of sight, smell, touch, sound, and look around the house. Was the house unkempt? Was their personal hygiene maybe not as well as it used to be? Was there food in the refrigerator? Was there rotting food in the refrigerator? Was there stacked up mail in the corner? Were there past due notices because they weren't quite keeping up with their bills and such? So really, as you looked around over the holidays, think back. Were things as you remember them from last time? And maybe there's a slippage in maybe cognitive issues or physical issues that we really need to take stock in and say, does mom and dad need a little help?
Right.
And once you recognize there's a problem, do something about it. Reach out for help.
I think, what's sad is that, people look for some major life event to happen in order to know they need help, right? A stroke or something serious, a heart attack or break a hip or something serious to come out of denial and say, oh my God, my parents need help.
Right.
When maybe it could be as easy as, like you said, having somebody, maybe they are having a hard time with the bills because maybe they can't see the numbers anymore. Or maybe they don't remember if they paid last month's bill or not. They're not organized. They don't keep a log anymore. And so maybe they just need some little help with accounting.
Right.
And maybe those are things that start to tip you off, or maybe they can't see well anymore. Maybe they don't want to listen. Like my mom definitely can't see well, but I don't know who her optometrist is. Says her vision is perfect. I don't know.
Well, and that's why we talked about at the top of the show, as far as, the New Year's resolutions, and maybe it's time now to, and it's like you said, be proactive, not reactive. Don't wait for that incident. Don't wait for that stroke, broken hip, what have you. Is to be proactive to make sure that they're having assistance in the areas they need. But most importantly, as far as getting your ducks in a row and being proactive when it's not overwhelming, when there's not an emergency, and you're doing things in crisis mode, is have what we call the talk. And while mom and dad are lucid and willing to talk about it, it's not a fun topic. It's like, let's talk about the timeline of aging. Let's talk about aging in place, and and will it be continuing to live in your home with maybe some assistance with home care? Will it be possibly moving to an assisted living, which is sometimes referred to as a cruise ship on land? But as we age, they have the choices of dictating their journey. Don't let someone else make that decision when you're incapable of speaking for yourself after an incident of what we've talked about. So then we also circled back around things I've talked about on the show before, but kind of as a reminder, for the New Year's resolution are all your legal documents in place? I mean, are you, Gino, or someone in your family legally able to talk on your grandma's behalf should she be incapable of making her own decisions for a short or extended period of time? And that I'm talking about advanced health care directives. If you do not have an advanced health care directive that names somebody, and there can be more than one, as an agent, so that you can talk to the doctors, you can talk to her financial institutions as her. So that has to be legally prepared in an advanced healthcare directive naming you as the agent. And you can have the same agent for both medical and financial. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes folks, want their accountant to be their power of attorney or advanced healthcare directive agent on their finances, but maybe a close family friend or a family member to be their agent on the medical side.
So I'm going to detour you there for a minute just because you reminded me of an experience that we recently had here at Skyline Home Loans. We had a group of people approach us for a cash-out refinance. Normal. Happens all the time. However, one of the spouses was incapacitated, and the caregiver had a universal power of attorney. Okay?
The caregiver did.
Caregiver had a universal power of attorney. I can tell you that almost everyone that touched this file was extremely sensitive to make sure there was no elder abuse in place. We spoke to Lisa Odom to have her speak to the other spouse, make sure everything was okay. We engaged our corporate team. Everybody was involved because it was, we were very, very careful that someone was not squandering their equity and taking their equity and running with it. And I'll tell you what it came down to. It came down to, in the end, the verbiage on the paperwork that they had was good verbiage. It said that they were sound of mind when they took action to make that paperwork happen, and if they should someday become incapacitated in the future, that this document would be valid. So that language was in there. Can you imagine if that language wasn't in there? It would have been absolutely horrible.
Right.
And then the second layer of this was that what we ended up needing to do is we needed to get a letter from the doctor that was their primary care physician at the time that that was executed to ensure that they were sound of mind at the time that that was executed. So, to your point, Myles, if that document wasn't put in place, they would never have been able to do what we did, and they would not have enough money to care for themselves today. But they were well prepared.
Right.
They had it done. And even when they were well prepared, we were all still very gun shy. And everybody had to still have an extra level of due diligence to make sure that no one was being taken advantage of.
Right. We call it pass the smell test. I mean, if there's ulterior motives in place and the legal documents aren't in place, it takes the control out of the family's hands or out of whatever family or friend agents that the seniors determine that they want to be in charge, and it goes into the hands of the doctors and or the courts.
Who wants that?
Right. And I always circle back to remind people that we're not just talking about our parents. If you have children who are 18 years or older and are legal adults, the whole advanced health care directive system applies to them as well. So if your child gets in a car accident and goes to the hospital and they're not able to speak on their own behalf, just because you're mom or dad, you're not going to be able to come in and say, well, that's my son, that's my daughter, I want it. If you do not have an advanced health care directive for your legal adult child, you again will not be able to speak on their behalf, and it falls back to the doctors and the courts.
Well, you know all about this, but we talked about it. We had Lisa Odom on the show last week, and we said, look, get your trust. And the reason you should get your trust is not only for your home or the rest of your estate. Also included in part of the trust is the advanced medical directives.
Right.
That's definitely a part of the trust. So when I got my trust done and when I got my parents' trust done, it definitely got us both protected so that we each had, all the rights that we wanted to have over each other's estates and such.
Right, and the trust is so important. I mean, we're talking about medical, and we're talking about, but it's also, there's a good chance that mom and dad or grandma and grandpa have accrued a lot of assets and wealth throughout the years. And to not have that completely outlined in a trust, or how you want those assets to be divided among your family, friends, or what have you, charitable, church, their choice, it can be a mess, and it throws it into the probate courts. And I'm sure Lisa covered that last week, and it just becomes a nightmare for the family.
Yep. So when we come back, we'll talk about a couple of other things that are super, super, super important. You touched on it a little bit, but it's early recognition of signs that something might be wrong. When we come back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.